Imagine you're running Microsoft 365 and now you're at this point where you need to look at the security posture of your Microsoft 365 environment. It can be for your company or maybe for your customer, where you can be an advisor consultant and you are to do an assessment or look at some of the security features. So again, there can be tons of videos because Microsoft 365 has to offer a lot of these. And in my tenant, it's pretty simple production tenant, but only few users. I'm going to see myself what are the recommendations available. And also it will give you an idea what a production environment looks like. And again, if you want to set up your production lab, check out my Microsoft 365 administration tutorial. But in this one, I'm going to walk you through if you are in a situation where you have to look into the security of your Microsoft 365 environment. So what you see here is my tenant, which has only few accounts. And this is what Microsoft Entra Admin Center looks like. Again, here you see a number of solutions available. You have audit, you have compliance manager, data catalog. We'll look into that so you can classify the data. Data lifecycle management also is one of the area where companies require data to be not available or deleted. For example, e-discovery you can perform, information barrier, information protection, insider risk management, records management. Again, if you were to go back before cloud, company used to implement and buy these solutions separately in the infrastructure, especially in banking industry. I remember one of those where those solutions were on premises and extremely complicated, and you had to spend good amount of money. Today, everything available in the cloud environment. Again, it's not for everyone, but if your company has to comply with these solutions are available there. And then we have Defender. Again, we have three, four, or maybe five type of Defender for cloud and Azure and 365. If you're deploying those, that's the portal. Again, if you're not, then I may cover a separate video on that. Entra, Microsoft Fabric, Priva, and Service Trust. So today I'm only interested in Entra because of identity and access management, and this is my always a topic where in the cloud environment identity has to be secure. So we're going to see what it has to offer when it comes to uh, identity. So Entra for Microsoft Azure identities. So there are some quick navigation item where is tenant overview. It's going to talk about all users I have in my organization, which I know a couple of them, all groups. So group has a lot of background. So when you create a meeting and after this recording is completed, it automatically creates some groups. So Microsoft 365 works a lot more on groups and it has a history around that. And then we have all devices. It could be your device or managed devices, or if you have just unmanaged devices and you have cell phone or email configured, it's going to show us the sign in logs. If I'm signing in from where and what time was device, enterprise application, if there are any in my organization, what are the roles, basically our back roles, what kind of authentication methods. So we'll look into that one of them and see what it has to show me. Basically, I'm doing some sort of a security posture management of my environment. So I'm going to click on tenant overview and I want to see what my tenant looks like and what do I need to do, what are the suggestions available. Same thing you can do in your production environment, just in a read-only mode. Do not make any changes without understanding. Do not make any changes when you have a alternate development environment. Do not make changes because in production environment, impact is high for even a small change. One of the example, if your organization is not using MFA and if you have 1,000 employees working in that organization, and the moment you implement MFA, it will cause 1,000 tickets because you have not communicated what change you're going to make. And I've seen people getting fired. So do not make any of those changes. Make sure you have a game plan and you have communicated well within IT, outside the IT, and you have support from different groups, application groups. It's not technical solution. You work with marketing, you work with sales and HR and legal. So everybody in those companies on the leadership level supposed to be involved, engaged, and you communicate them well in advance. And for those type of migration I have done, we used to have a white glove kind of treatment, support line and everything. So it goes with that when it comes to IT operation and security operation. Even it's a security control you wanted to implement, have a MFA from security, but IT operations are there. So again, depending who you are and what your role is, but those are the practices. And this video is for educational purposes. I'm just going to show what a production environment looks like, and these kind of skills you can apply. And also for the companies, if you're working somewhere, that's kind of a visibility you have, or you can have a parallel environment. So I have 8 applications, this number of groups. It shows service changes to Microsoft Entra Connect if you have um, sync. So I do not have an Active Directory sync, so I can easily ignore it. But if you have on-premise Active Directory, then you have to consider it. Please migrate your authentication method off to the legacy MFA and self-service password reset policy. So again, suggesting me self-service password reset policy. If you do not know, where an end user can just go and reset the password by themselves instead of calling a help desk support. So it's one of a very great feature. It shows secure score of my identity is only 11%, right? I'm not surprised because I know my environment. Okay, so this is the updated one anyways, and it shows the score history from 7 days, and I can go back 30 days, 60 days. It kind of gives me a history of my score, and it's saying that my score has gone down from 40 to what, 18%, which is not good. So just think of it like credit card score. And now we have impact. This is also an important thing for you to understand. The score you get, total score here, it based on different variables, what you can see here. For example, user impact is high also. This is where I just talked about it. If you apply any one of those, it's giving you what will be the impact on the user audience, which is very, very important. So I'm glad that it's showing this, that what are the low impact thing, what are the moderate one, what are the higher ones. So I only see one high impact control, which I said enable multi-factor authentication right there. So that is going to be high impact. So you have to plan accordingly. So again, just don't run after increasing the score from 18% to 80%, but you need to look into that as well. Least privilege administrative role, which is a low impact, right? Because not 1,000 employees are the admin. You might have 5 or 10 admin. So again, you have to give them the least privileges. So for example, if you have 10 admins, global admin, you need to reduce it to 2, and the rest of the 8 admins, one can be SharePoint administrator, Exchange, OneDrive. Not necessarily everybody in your IT needs a global admin. That's a big risk. You don't want to do it even for yourself. You don't want to log in as a global admin every day. So that's why you need to have a need to know basis and RBAC. Hey, who people who manages Exchange are supposed to only have an Exchange online versus SharePoint people only supposed to have SharePoint online access versus Microsoft Team administrators should only be, or there can also be people who manages Team, SharePoint, and Exchange Online. That's fine, but they are not global administrator as long as this is taking care of that. While I'm doing this, I came across some of the very interesting feature in this camera and video. I am not sure if you have seen it before, which is the avatar, and other than avatar, they have some more video effect, and they are really some fun styles they have. So let me know if you see it. Yeah, that's the mustache. This is so funny. It just changed the way I look at it. So I think let's do it. So now let's get back to the same topic. Let me share the screen. So again, what you see on the screen, low impact one and the high impact ones, right? And when you click on that, it also gives you the description, the score impact, current score, maximum score, and give the description of that. At a minimum, protect the following roles with multi-factor. So it's already suggesting you need to implement enforce multi-factor for global administrator account, authentication administrator if you have separate people who are authentication administrator, billing administrator people who from accounting who are in charge of paying your monthly bill. You may want to enforce multi-factor because if the account got compromised, guess what? You know, it can cause some billing issues and outage of your services if the card is declined along those lines. Conditional access administrator, if you have a large enough organization, people who just work on that. Exchange administrator, of course, the common one. And let's say if you have a 2,000, 5,000 employees company, you might have people dedicated just for Outlook and email support. So you want to make sure those people with Exchange administrative right have MF implemented. Same thing with the help desk IT people. Same thing with the security people. So there's a list of that. There's a top 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10 roles available, which basically your first step, in my opinion, to start implementing MFA if you have not. Now look at the next suggestion here. Designate more than one global admin. So designate more than one global admin. In my case, if my tenant, I am the only global admin. I think global admin, but I've seen environment. There's a two side of it. You do not want have everybody in the IT to be a global admin, but you want to have more than one. So maximum, for example, 2 or 3. And in those situations, you want to make sure you're not using that global administrator account every day. For everyday activity, you got to have a different account, and only specific use case scenarios you have to have a global admin account. And on top of that, you also want to have a break class account. In case of global administrator, MFA doesn't work, so you have a break class account with, I don't know, 16 character password or 20, whichever maximum is available. And then you never use that account unless it's a sealed in an envelope, and you only need to access when all options are failed and nothing works. So that's kind of a scenario. You have to have separate accounts. So those are the best practices. And also here is mentioned according to CIS benchmark of Office 365 suggests that you have between 2 or 4 global admin, as I was just explaining. Currently conditioned to comply this to have more than one global admin. This security recommendation will be updated according to CIS benchmark in the future. So depending how small or large organizations you have, again, you don't want to have more than four global admin. For example, this is again way too much, and you have to make sure password strength is good enough, MFA is enforced, conditional access is there. If you're in US, then you don't want to have global admin to be even be able to log in outside US. So those kind of additional granular policies you can apply on top of that. Now the next one we have is use a least privilege administrator. As I mentioned you already, you need to have account for Exchange admin versus SharePoint. So you have to role based access. We'll skip that. Start Defender by deploying, installing sensor and domain controller. So again, if you have a domain controller on premises or even in the cloud, you need to put your Defender sensor and then collect the intelligence from there. So this will protect the and provide the ability to detect advanced threats. You know, it will like endpoint security basically. You might have other different tools for your endpoint management, but if you're Microsoft Shop, you can of course deploy some domain controller sensor that collect the telemetry, and this can also help you. And there are directions available there. Um, ensure consents to app accessing company's data on their behalf is not allowed. So usually when you use your company's account for a third party website, basically there's a pop-up for the consents. And once you allow that, then that app can read all the data from your organization on behalf of you. So those are the conditions you don't want to allow, and you have to block it at your tenant level. And this is what it is talking about, that you should stop it. And there's all the details available. So single, usually this scenario comes from the single sign-on and only be available when you trust that vendor or a company. Otherwise, there are some application they trick user into granting the access to the organization. So, for example, if you download a calendar app or some production app, productivity app, something along those lines with your company's domain name, that might be able to collect all the data because as a user, what you are able to see that all the email address for your organization, that app on behalf of you can collect the data. So that app, by having that consent, has the same visibility in your environment without knowing you. So though, how can you protect those information are available there? Now we have self-service password, conditional access policy to block, legacy authentication. This is something I want to talk about. Um, so how can you block that conditional access? We need to understand that. Before we do that, right? Okay, that's cool. So, what is a legacy authentication? I'll give you one example. In fact, I did one example in one of the security conference in New York I was speaking to. Is everybody knows, or if you don't know, for example, like in email, everybody use webmail, but back in days, if you go back to Linux-based system, there was SMTP and POP and IMAP, and Microsoft Exchange used to be the same thing. Fast forward now, everything is in HTTPS and secure protocol, but still, I've seen so many environments they run legacy hosting services and they still use POP and SMTP and their reports. So for POP and SMTP, if you have Microsoft SQL Server 2005, and that also generate reporting for financial services, for example, or financial reporting, usually those services are enabled and it will send weekly and daily report. So I've seen in this configuration in many environment. So if you have any Linux server, old Windows server, old SQL server, any of those in your environment, that one of those area might be using the legacy. And this is where um, legacy authentication um, can be used, or modern authentication can be bypassed, means your multi-factor would not work in those scenarios. So let me rephrase it. So let's say if you have an exchange online and you have enabled POP3 and IMAP, if you go and take a look in the properties, you can do that. But at the same time, you're using Outlook and webmail. But if my ID Adnan has both and all the protocols enabled, so even though if I'm enforcing MFA, if I have an old Outlook client or any client, if I put IMAP, POP3 and SMTP setting, it will not prompt me for the multi-factor, so I can easily bypass. So if somebody compromise your password, even if your MFA is there, MFA can be bypassed. That's why you need to block legacy authentication. But you have to be careful. You got to make sure your business application are not impacted. So once you have a go from every application team, then this is the best way. But if you're a brand new organization in 365, that is one of the first steps you wanted to do it. One more or two, then we will be pretty much done with that. So Microsoft Entra sign-in risk policy. I have a Microsoft Sentinel tutorial, which I have covered these risky user sign-in and policies. Basically, it collects the information. And then based on that, you can info if the user is risky. Then it will prompt the user to re-authenticate him or herself using multi-factor, whichever the case is. You need Microsoft Entra P2 license for that. And it also says if you invest in Entra Premium 2 licenses, you create a conditional access policy from scratch or using a template. Um, and they recommend you set the action to as risk accepted. So again, step-by-step directions are available. I would suggest you to let the machine learn it and start implementing slowly and one policies at a time. Same thing, we have identity user risk protection, ensure multi-factor authentication is enabled for all users. That's what you see on the screen. We provide a step-by-step. If you would like to perform implementation, your first check Microsoft Entra license prerequisites. So basically, it will walk you through what is required, how can you do it. And in my opinion, in any of these environments, if you have large organization or small, depending, You may want to apply on the first 5 or 10 individual users, apply the MFA, and then before you roll it out. Or you may start applying first with the IT. This is how we used to it. We had a pilot user group in IT department. Let's say the IT department was 30 people. We will select 5 or 8 or 10 people first and test it for a couple of days or a week. Then in the next phase, we'll deploy to the all IT, and we test it for a week or 2 weeks and we have no complaints. Then we roll it out to the whole organization. This is how we used to do it. So again, if you apply all those things, this is just I kind of touch base on Entra ID based on the identity security score I have had in my organization. I just wanted to share what it looks like at the org level, what does it look like in such situation and scenarios when you have that. Oh wow, this is a bad one. That's bad. Oh my God. So again, those are the things you need to um, apply to improve the secure score. And let me know what you think about it. If you have your environment and what your secure score looks like, do you have the same findings? And then maybe in the future, I can address some more of the issues which can help you strengthen the security posture of your organization. Till then, thank you and bye bye.